Vladimir Putin was honored like a Russian czar at his swearing-in for a new 6-year presidential term. Putin had a double-edged message for the West. The Kremlin is ready to talk, but Russia is girding for victory in Ukraine. Putin, who rose to the top of the Kremlin just 8 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, will overtake Joseph Stalin and become Russia's longest-serving ruler since Empress Catherine the Great if he completes the term. The 71-year-old former KGB spy exuded confidence in the carefully choreographed inauguration, which the West and opponents, who are mainly in jail or abroad, cast as a fig leaf of democracy covering a corrupt Russian autocracy. As the Russian elite waited in the Hall of St. Andrew in the Grand Kremlin Palace, where the imperial throne once sat, Putin studied documents in his office before walking down the corridors of the Kremlin to salute guards, even stopping to unhurriedly study a picture on the wall. "We do not refuse dialogue with Western states," Putin said after being sworn in, adding that he was ready for talks on security and strategic stability, but only if there was no arrogance from the United States and its allies. Russia's paramount leader of more than 24 years promised victory and said all Russians were now answerable to our 1,000-year history and our ancestors. He left the ceremony to the music Hail, from Mikhail Glinka's opera, A Life for the Tsar. The words "Hail, hail my Rus, hail you are my Russian land" rang out in the Kremlin. The original words are "Hail, hail, our Russian Tsar. The authority of our president is higher than ever, higher than the American president, higher even than the Russian Tsar. So much depends on our president," said Communist Party leader Gennady Zhuganov. Putin's 2022 invasion of Ukraine touched off the worst breakdown in relations between Russia and the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Russia is advancing along the front line, and its artillery production outstrips the NATO alliance. The West views Putin as an autocrat, a war criminal, a killer, and even, as U.S. President Joe Biden said earlier this year, a crazy SOB who U.S. officials say has enslaved Russia in a corrupt dictatorship. Putin casts the war as part of an existential battle with a declining and decadent West, which he says humiliated Russia after the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. By encroaching on what he considers Moscow's sphere of influence, including Ukraine. Sergei Naryshkin, head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, told Reuters that Putin's speech was an invitation to the West to begin dialogue. From one side, this is an invitation to the West to equal cooperation, and from the other side, it is the firm conviction that Russia will ensure its own development and security, Naryshkin said. And if the West doesn't want to talk, then let them think, Naryshkin said with a smile. The signal comes just a day after Putin ordered drills to practice the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons after what Moscow said were threats from France, Britain, and the US. Putin's suggestion of a ceasefire in Ukraine to freeze the war was rejected by the United States after contacts between intermediaries, Reuters reported in February.